Visa kicking off a major product event in San Francisco today. Joining us now to talk about all of that, as well as earnings, which just happened last night, Visa CEO Ryan McInerney. Ryan, it's great to see you. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Great to be here. Thanks.
Let's start with the AI product news. So you've got a bunch of things rolling out, but Visa Intelligent Commerce is what you're calling us. Walk us through how this is actually going to work. What is it going to look like on the consumer side, if you could?
Yeah, let me put it in context first. We've been using AI at Visa for many, many years to protect consumers from fraud and those types of things. And we'll continue to do that. But now what our product teams have done is used AI to empower consumers to have more effective and efficient shopping experiences, to be able to work with your agent, whether you're going to go, you need a new set of tennis shoes to run a marathon, or you're going to buy a Mother's Day gift, which is coming up in a week or two. Your agent will be able to go do that on your behalf. But for that to work, your agent needs the tools to do that. And we announced a lot of tools today that are going to make the payments work. And you need trust. You need to trust your agent. The merchant needs to trust the agent, and your bank needs to trust the agent. And we think that's where the products that we announced today step in and are going to really empower agentic commerce in a meaningful way.
And when you say agent, so this is an OpenAI, this is an Anthropic providing the actual agent to the end customer. This isn't Visa, building its own AI agent, for example.
Correct. And in fact, we announced today that we've been working on all this in partnership with Anthropic, with OpenAI, with Microsoft, with Stripe, with Mistral, with Perplexity, with all of the leaders in this space. We've been working together to ensure that this is going to work in a broad-based way, because you want your agent to go buy something for you. You want it to be able to go everywhere, and you want to be able to do it on whatever platform that you choose you want to do that on.
And what kind of friction were you seeing that led to this? Why couldn't this happen before you rolled out this platform?
Well, you think about yourself just going to shop for something. You have to go through all the inventory that exists on the internet. This is where AI is able to step in on your behalf and optimize that experience in a much more efficient way. And so what we've done is we've introduced AI-ready Visa credentials. So think about that as built on our Visa tokenization technology, which we have 13 billion tokens now in the world. So it's proven, it's robust, it's accepted. But also we've built in the data protocol so you can tell your agent, I want you to spend this amount of money, don't spend more than this, go to these merchants or these merchant segments and come back to me in 30 minutes. Don't do more than that. And we've built all that into the Visa network now to empower users to be able to use these agents.
So you can make sure the agent doesn't go rogue and say, all right, I got your credit card, I'm going to go on a shopping spree. You can sort of set the parameters through Visa?
That's exactly right. You'll be able to set your parameters on any specific thing that you want your agent to do. And that's what we've built inherently into the Visa network, so that you're able to set that as a user. But also when that transaction comes, your bank sees all that data and they know that you've authorized your agent for that particular type of purchase.
I was going to ask about authorization too. I think this would worry a lot of people. The idea of an agent doing things to be productive, maybe reading emails and responding is one thing, but also having your credit card information. How are you actually making sure that it is actually the AI agent that you authorized? It's not some bad actor out there.
Yeah, this is where our tokenization technology comes in. Being able to have a bound Visa token that is a representation of your Visa credential, and that we know specifically that you have authorized that agent to use it. So when that token shows up for a transaction, we know specifically that you've authorized it, and it's not some other rogue fraudster, as you described.
Big picture, what does this say about changing consumer behavior around shopping? It feels anecdotally like a lot of us are using AI and using these chatbots. What do you expect the future of shopping to actually look like?
I think it's going to be a lot like self-driving cars. I think we're going to have the ability to be able to just, say whether it's groceries or a specific gift that I'm trying to buy. It's going to take, for those people that want to take kind of the top of the shopping funnel out of their daily lives, it's just going to make it a lot easier. In general, kind of more efficient, more effective outcomes win in the world. And I think consumers will vote with their feet, and they'll want their agents to go do a significant portion of their shopping with better outcomes.
And MasterCard announced something similar yesterday. You mentioned all the partnerships. Is this becoming table stakes in payments? Do you need to have this capability to keep up with some of the competitors out there?
I think what needs to happen to make this work is the whole ecosystem needs to take a big step forward and embrace it. So we welcome everybody, all the partners that I mentioned and others, working on a set of standards to enable this in a broad-based way. I mean, the thing about payments is it's got to be wildly understood how it works. You have to have broad-based standards. You have to have real trust, and that's where Visa steps in. I mean, that's what we are known for in 200 plus countries and territories around the world. 150 million sellers accept our products, 4.8 billion credentials out there. That's the type of network that I think can really enable this great user experience.
And while we're talking about AI, we had Satya Nadella making some comments about, I think it was 30% of coding, he said, is being done, and sort of the engineering side of the business being done by AI. Are you seeing anything similar on the Visa side?
We're seeing great productivity improvements across the business with AI. Significant improvements in productivity and engineering, as you mentioned, that Satya mentioned. But we're also seeing great productivity improvements in sales, in marketing, in finance, in HR, all across the business. It's empowering our team members to be much, much more productive in what they do, and also our sales teams to be much more effective in serving our clients, especially bringing our data and our analytics and our solutions to serve them.
Is it around the 30% number? Is that sort of line up with what you're seeing at Visa?
Yeah, we're seeing similar productivity to what you mentioned, Satya mentioned.
Does that mean less hiring or just more productivity? I think there's been this debate of what those numbers actually mean. Do you expect to need to lower headcount or just not need to hire in the way that you may have needed to, even 5 years ago?
I think it's different for different companies. For us at Visa, it's about enabling more productivity of our team members. And, we're seeing more throughput, more products that are getting shipped into market, shipping products faster into market around the world. It's been a real unlock for our engineering and our product teams.
That's fascinating. Well, I also want to mention other product news. You did partner with Bridge. You're bringing stablecoins to Visa cards. What does the demand actually look like for people paying with cryptocurrency? It seems like this idea has been out there for a long time. You guys have done a lot in crypto. How is this different? And is there demand? Do people actually want to use stablecoins in their everyday lives?
Yeah, I think this is an expansion of the work we've been doing in crypto for many years. We have become the partner of choice for crypto exchanges around the world, enabling their user base. Maybe they have a Bitcoin at a Coinbase account, be able to use the Coinbase Visa card to go spend without having to think about how do they convert that Bitcoin and how much is it worth on that day or things like that. That's been, I think, a really important product for the community. And the stablecoin work is an extension of that. There has been real demand for stablecoins around the world. You see that in the numbers, and consumers that have stablecoins want to be able to spend some of it, of course, and they don't want to have to think about, well, where can I go use these stablecoins? I don't know if they're going to be accepted somewhere. That's where we step in. With a stablecoin denominated Visa account, I can just go spend it anywhere that Visa is accepted anywhere around the world.
It's interesting. It seems like a very global product. I think a lot of Americans probably would wonder why you would need a stablecoin if you can use your credit card everywhere. Are you seeing more of the demand, I would think, from maybe developing countries, or where is it coming from? Who's mostly trying to use this?
Yeah, I think outside of the capital markets use cases where people are trading in crypto, where stablecoins play a real important role, I think the biggest product market fit, as you said, is outside the US, in countries that might have high inflation, in countries that might not have access to dollars, in countries that might have currency controls. I think that's where you're starting to see the product market fit for stablecoins.
And then we'll move to earnings in a second. But if there's a big picture message on the 2025 strategy that you're trying to get across to investors today at the product event, what would be your message on sort of going forward, what the next year looks like for Visa?
Yeah, I mean, our message to investors is we have enormous TAM in front of us in all three of our growth areas. And what we've done today, which are consumer payments, value-added services, and commercial and money movement flows. And what we've done today is show the next wave of our product roadmap that's going to enable that. And we believe that should give investors confidence that we're going to be able to continue to grow. We're going to continue to digitize those TAMs in new and very exciting ways.
And then on the earnings front, Ryan, you mentioned the consumer, just consumer spending in general, calling it resilient. Take us under the hood of some of those comments. What are you seeing that gives you that type of confidence in the consumer?
Yeah, I think what we can add to the discussion on all of this are just the facts on what we're seeing on the Visa network. And what we're seeing in terms of broad-based spending across consumer segments, across merchant segments globally, is resilient consumer spending. We showed 8% overall year-over-year spending growth in the quarter. That was 9% outside of the US and 6% inside the US. Very consistent, resilient growth, similar to what we've seen for several quarters. So I think there's certainly a lot of uncertainty. there's a lot of anxiety among consumers. You see that in the consumer confidence numbers for sure. But I think it's also important to look at the facts. And like I said, what we can bring to the discussion is just a sense of what's actually happening day in and day out in the United States right now with overall consumer spending. And that growth has been resilient for many, many months now, including up through a couple days ago in April.
I was going to ask, is that sort of real time or are you looking at the prior quarter? Because I wonder, since all of the tariffs have been announced and sort of what we've seen in public markets spilling over to consumer confidence, that is, April, for example. You're seeing people still spending at the rate they were a couple months ago.
Yeah, we talked on our earnings call we showed data up through April 21st, which was resilient and consistent. And we said we looked at the numbers through April 28th and they were similar. So we've seen consistent, resilient spending, not only through the quarter, but through the month of April.
What about going forward? Are you seeing any pockets of weakness or any areas that do worry you when you look at the data?
Yeah, there's always kind of pockets of the economy that are growing stronger and some that where consumers are pulling back. We regularly see that at any given time. Travel's an area where I think it's been very clear that there's been a bit of a pullback in travel, both domestically and internationally. It's certainly on the consumer side of things, and we see that. But we also see strengths in other area, in retail spending, in many parts of the retail segments, we've seen strength. So this is when, on our network, given it's so broad based and so many different segments, you're going to have consumers that are pulling back in some areas and accelerating more than others. What we shared on our call is that overall, if you look at discretionary and non-discretionary spending across all the merchant segments, those two are resilient. We haven't seen kind of a pullback in overall discretionary spending.
What about the uncertainty you mentioned? I would think it's probably a tough time to be a CEO, to forecast into future quarters and plan when there is so much uncertainty around what tariffs are going to look like, what it's going to do to the economy. How are you planning for the future? How is all of this factoring into Visa's business?
Yeah, well, we're always running scenarios. We're always looking at the data. We're always looking at the facts. Given how global our business is, we have to take all of that into consideration as in terms of our planning horizon. And we're just regularly running scenarios, thinking about the best way to invest. But we try to stay very focused on the medium and long-term opportunities. As we were talking about a moment ago, we have just enormous opportunity in front of us, and we want to make sure that we're making the investments that are going to deliver 2, 5, 10 years out.
Are people going to travel less? That's one question too. I mean, cross-border border payments took such a big hit during COVID. I wonder if there's sort of this new geopolitical world order, if that will mean less cross-border travel, therefore another hit to Visa's business.
Yeah, I think we have to see how everything settles out. If I had to make a prediction a couple of years out, I think people are going to travel more. I think experiences are incredibly important to especially the younger generations. And in many ways, the experience economy is going to be growing faster than some of the more traditional economies that older generations have invested in. So our point of view is that travel is going to increase, if not decrease, going forward, given how important all these experiences are.
You mentioned some of the other sides of Visa's business that we don't talk about as much, sort of the value-added services. But I wonder, when we look at the macro picture, how much is sort of in your control versus looking at just how much people are swiping their credit cards? Can you give us sort of a breakdown on what levers you can pull and what you can actually control in this macro environment?
Yeah, on the one hand, our business is incredibly influenced by the macro environment, just given what we do and who we are. On the other hand, one of the biggest opportunities that we have is putting products in the hands of consumers and businesses that displace cash, check, wire, ACH, account to account payments, and those types of things. So on the one hand, the macro economy factors into our growth, but if we do our job really, really well, we're also digitizing other means of payment that can drive our growth. The other thing I would say in times of recession is our business has become much more diverse. We have value-added services. We have our commercial and money movement flows. We have a much more geographically diverse business today than we did historically. And we have a much more diverse business between customer segments, debit, credit, and those types of things, which should be helpful to us in times of lower economic growth.
And the other news out of earnings was this $30 billion stock buyback program. What does that signal about the company? Do you feel like the stock is undervalued? Tell us a little bit more about that.
I think it just signals our board's confidence in the growth prospects of the company and willingness to put our capital and cash to work in service of investors and service of the company. And, I think investors were very excited to hear that from us yesterday.
Are there other ways you can put capital to work? I think of M&A and potential opportunities. Will you be more acquisitive going forward?
First of all, we put our capital to work in our own R&D, in our own product roadmap. We invest a
Mhm.
significant amount of capital to go capture all those opportunities that I mentioned earlier, and to deploy the types of products that we announced today, whether it's, in the agentic space or the stablecoin space, or we announced a lot in terms of kind of digital money movement and enabling buyers and sellers around the world, as well as our flexible credential. But also, we're very opportunistic in terms of acquisitions. And, I do think there's a possibility as we go forward and valuations potentially come down in some segments. That could be an opportunity for us. And we've done the work to be ready to hopefully capture those opportunities.
We'll let you go in a second, Ryan, but anything that really surprised you from the quarter? What, if anything, was a shocker from the last 3 months? Anything that caught you off guard or that just stood out in a way that maybe you didn't expect?
I wouldn't say it was a shocker, but I continue to be encouraged by the resilience of consumers in the US and around the world, despite, if you will, the noise and the uncertainty that is out there. And, we have no idea what's going to happen from here. But again, just being able to share those facts with the world, hopefully it's helpful as everybody sorts out where we go from here.
I think it is surprising to a lot of people. I think the word resilient, based on some of the soft data, you could call it, it is a big surprise. So it's great to get your thoughts on all of it. Thanks for walking us through this, and good luck today at the product event. We'll see you soon, Ryan.
Thanks. Great to see you. Thanks for having me on.